few days ago, former Law Minister Zaid Ibrahim is quoted as saying, and I quote, "History has shown us that clerical leadership can steer nations through immense adversity. Just look at Iran." End of quote. So welcome to another episode of Simon Says. Joining me here today is Lyra.
Hello.
And Lyra, that article came out a few days ago, sort of kind of frame what we want to discuss, because I don't even know, is Zaid Ibrahim will pass or...
I have no idea. I mean, when I look at it, I was like, is he a spokesperson for PAS?
Actually, I think he might have become a member for PAS. Remember, he was DAP and PKR. But I just felt, in light of what's happening with Iran and international relationship, I just felt in context of Malaysia, it is such a ridiculous statement, right? And somehow you're a law minister, you're someone that is well versed with civil law. It's like, in what part of Malaysia is there a consensus for clerical leadership? Now, of course, we do have political party with that kind of aspiration, but you look at recent times with the rising of the Borneo states and nations, I really don't think there is an appetite for this kind of discourse. But anyway, that's what I want to talk about today. And when you think about, I think we can backtrack a little bit, talking about the formation of Malaysia, right? 1963. Of course, we can go back to formation of Malaya, 1957. But MA 63, when we look at four nations coming together, Malaya, Singapore, Sabah, Sarawak. And I think at least from the Borneo state's perspective, freedom of religion is one of the paramount consideration.
Definitely.
And so when you have this kind of statement coming out, it is just, I was just discussing with my father-in-law the other day, and one of the things, of course, we know the Madani government is kind of under a lot of pressure with SST subsidy kind of thing, and people are generally not very happy, right?
Yeah.
But then you see there's still that fear among Pakatan Harapan supporters. It's like, if we don't support PMX, then Hadi Awang might become prime minister and things like that. But I just say, look, I don't believe that PAS can be the dominant party for the simple reason that Sabah and Sarawak will not allow that. But of course, the other side point is that GPS, of course, used to be called Barisan Nasional Sarawak, actually have very close relationship with UMNO.
I think that's the part that a lot of people are unaware of, just because. But credit to them, they really, really did a good rebranding of themselves, and people kind of like just thought, hey, there seems to be a lot of reform by Sarawak Premier himself, and basically people are like cheering him on because he seems to have to, make Sarawak great again, sort of like slogan in a sense, like almost, I guess, echoing what is happening in the United States. So I think because of that, people are less, I guess, like maybe not so eager or at the mood for basically like Sarawak independence. But that kind of like being put on a back burner. But that doesn't mean that there is a sudden appetite for clerical leadership in this nation, because people are still kind of like, hey, let's put the interests of my state first, my nation first. So with that, I think it's kind of like the contention that we are facing here, because it is almost like, yes, there is that party, a group of people that are very, very unhappy with what PMX is doing, and yet they can't voice it out because they are also concerned about the rising of PAS. But the thing is, I don't think people find that palatable, but neither do they find what PMX is doing palatable as well, because he is just basically, I think he's just trying to be a Robin Hood, but then basically you're robbing from the hood.
Yeah, it's a lot of socialist, progressive elements. Then you add in the Islamist element. It's like all the things that Malaysia shouldn't be, and somehow the worst of Malaysia is being put on display. I mean, whether it is a fair statement or not, I mean, this is for the voters to judge. But back to your point about how people are scared. I mean, I know I started off the show by saying that I don't think PAS will be able to lead the nation because of Sabah and Sarawak. But at the same time, I'm also very concerned about the coalition like GPS, which is because of their close proximity with UMNO and the fact that they supported Perikatan National Government under both Sabri and Muhyiddin shows that, you see, because the mindset of GPS and GRS, all those is like, hey, we just need to be concerned about what happened in Sabah and Sarawak. We don't need to be concerned about what's happening in Malaya and the rest of the country. So I felt this kind of attitude is what is going to maybe give rise to this kind of clerical opportunity.
Yeah, I think don't you reckon that sort of apathy sort of seep into the Borneo states when
It does. Even the pro-independence gang.
yeah, I mean, especially with the introduction of the Petroleum Development Act, and basically a lot of people are just spooked, and then they just felt like because of the past leadership of how they have successfully like traded in this like muddy waters in terms of the relationship between the East and the West, and they just felt like, hey, that seems to work well, as in like I get to retain my own power, but I don't need to be bothered as much with federal. But it's just that now, I mean, I think that work well when you have only like just a single majority party that is in the leadership. But the thing is, now it's like so fragmented, and everyone is like vying for power. I'm not sure if, I mean, they can still forever stay on the fence.
Yeah, because when you think about it, in the 70s, at the height of Tun Hussein On's power, and he managed to push through a constitutional amendment that make Sabah and Sarawak status to be like a state. And of course, Barisan Nasional was an old-time dominant at that time. So they were able to say to at least Sarawak Barisan Nasional, look, we guarantee you have full autonomy. I mean, in terms of within the state, okay? But so many things are linked with federal power, right? Finance, defense, and things like that. So Taib Mahmud kind of ran with it, and he was basically emperor of Sarawak, but and federal doesn't interfere. But I guess your point is very true. You know, now there's no guarantee who is in control of federal government. So in that respect, I am a bit cautious, I guess maybe that's the right word, about GPS, because they are not a reliable coalition. You know, the only thing reliable about them is that they will take care of their own interests. So if their interest is to allow a past prime minister to come into the country, they may do it. They may allow, you know, certain constitutional amendment and things. Of course, it's not going to be easy because parties are very fragmented. But that kind of show their long-term relationship, because I mean, PAS and Barisan Nasional Sarawak, aka GPS, have long-standing mutual benefiting relationship. So that's the one thing that kind of like, to me, is a danger point. But of course, you know, back to your point about, you know, the mindset of make Sarawak great again. And in fact, it started off with the previous premier, right, Adnan. And I was just hearing you know, recently, you know, when you look at what happened with PKR, with the removal of Rafizi, right? And before that, you have Azmi Ali. Before that, you have Khalid and all the reformer gang. PMS seems to have that tendency to remove people who are going to threaten his position. And I think we were just talking about it the other day, that Taib Mahmud also very, very similar. You know, in fact, so many number 2, number 3 have been removed, at least 7, 8 people, and then you have Abanjo. But before that, the previous premier was Adnan. And Adnan, of course, kind of like same tribe, you know, as Taib. He was a federal minister, and then there was rumor that he could replace Taib. So he came back to Sarawak, you know, from federal to state, Dun, and he was sidelined for 10 years. Because Taib was very afraid of him. But of course, eventually, you know, they had to consolidate, you know, and just kind of like, you know, if we don't do anything, the Daya will take over. So I think reluctantly Taib allowed him to be the next premier. And he started to say, I am able to do what I wanted to do. So one of his greatest reform will be the land lease renewal, you know, which is one of a kind, you know, flat fee for any residential and agricultural land, which is just unheard of. You know, West Malaysia, when they hear about that kind of renewal, get another 60 years for 1,000, 2,000 flat rate. I think their minds are blown. So these are genuine reforms. So I don't want to say GPS is trash, but I'm very concerned about their foundation.
No, I mean, of course, not saying that GPS is like trash completely. I think they do still have like certain, well, obviously, if it aligns with the interests of themselves, I mean, they will still put the certain interests of
Of course.
Sarawakians ahead of them. But the thing is, I think it's like I guess the way to look at them is like they are wolves in a sheepskin, and basically you're not sure when they would just
Flip on you, right?
yeah, exactly. And I guess like, and also it doesn't help much because the federal ministers here, especially I mean those that are but basically in close proximity with the prime minister himself, they are I guess it seems like they are emboldened by like Iranian counterstrike against Israel. I mean, and it's like I'm not sure if they are actually like very supportive of like it seems like this nation has a tendency to support terrorists and you don't recognize evil when it is evil.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to look at the leaders, right? I mean, like our prime minister is one of the few leaders who outrightly support Hamas. And I can think of the only other nations that, I mean, of course, you can talk about all the Islamic nation and things like that, but even a lot of Gulf nations don't behave like that. But the other nation that really behaves like this is South Africa, which is very, very similar in terms of their affirmative actions, dominance of a single race and things like that. In fact, it's interesting that Rainbow Nation, which is a term that frequently used to describe Malaysia because different cultures come together, is actually termed by Nelson Mandela. So South Africa is supposed to be a rainbow nation also, but today you look at their affirmative actions, it is really, you know how the government is kind of taking the lands away. So when the South Africa president went to White House, Trump made him watch the video. And so this guy wanted to meet Trump again in Canada, G7. But it kind of, like, I don't know, do you think there's a pattern there? It's like affirmative action kind of cause you to, I don't know, I mean, maybe it's not very fair to say like that, but there's just a lot of similarity between us and South Africa.
Yeah, I mean the most detrimental part about it is like there is quota system that is applied at every level of society, and basically, I mean, the most obvious one that would be affecting a lot of people would be education. And basically, like, why would you need to impose quota system? I mean, because if you want to train talents, you want to make it competitive. I mean, obviously you teach people how to fish, but the thing is, like, we are so used to handout cultures and welfare state that, I mean, I just find it bizarre that the prime minister himself would just say that, hey, I mean, we are taxing the people so that we can actually give back to the society. And like, but your civil servants are bloated.
He kind of turned back, when he was saying that we should be, it shouldn't be affirmative action, it should be need-based policy. Remember he said that? And then soon after that, he went to raise the civil servants. I mean, nothing against civil servant, right? But if you want to, you look at what's happening with America, with DOG, the Doge reform, basically you're looking at waste. And if you're not performing, I have to cut you off. That's how organizations survive. Unless you are a charity organization, unless you are like an NGO that receive some sort of unlimited funding. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of fair. I mean, even in the last 3 episodes, we kind of talk about that whatever reform that was said in Pakatan Harapan's platform, and yeah, they can continue to use the excuse that we are not a Pakatan Harapan government, we are Madani. Sure, fine. But it is, even if you use the lowest level of standard to judge, it's like a very, I don't know, it's like just disastrous at this stage, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I think, I mean, the one last point I was just suddenly reminded is why I kept thinking about GPS and UMNO having that relationship, because remember the last G, once it happened, immediately Abanjo was saying that they will agree to form a government with UMNO. remember? And I think Hishamuddin met someone, I don't know, in KL or in Kuching. And then, but they were all derailed by Zahid, right? And said, no such thing. So that kind of, it always at the back of my mind that GPS is not reliable, even though they say, well, for Borneo and things like that, they will not hesitate to team up with anyone that will preserve their interests. But anyway, talking about all these things, just talking to our friend David Tian, right? And he was, I think Sunday when I saw him, he was just like, he has been thinking, why the reform cannot be done. So I say, he said even, at the party level and things like that, people are talking about it because they find it a bit bizarre, that between the Pakatan Harapan parties, you have 70 plus seats, right? It's like you cannot even push for some of your agenda. It's like something is wrong, right? But then he was just saying that, look, maybe it's really the Ketuangan Melayu and things like that. They call it the racial supremacy, and which kind of lead us to what we actually want to talk about today. Right? I know we kind of segue a little bit. And last year, I remember Bridget Welsh published article, and she actually put a chart, right? Which is very interesting. I don't know if our tech team can put the chart in the video, that'll be good, right?
Yes.
So she kind of outlined 5 different models of nation building, and she called it Malaysia's divisions over nations, right? So 5 model. The first one is one multicultural Malaysia, and that's like what everyone thought we should be, when they all come in 1963. Then you have the second one, Malay Malaysia, which is basically Malay supremacy that kind of took hold with NEP, after May 13 and things like that. Then you have the Islamist Malaysia, which is, so one we have racial supremacy. This is more like a religious supremacy, kind of linked to what Zahid said about clerical leadership, right?
Actually, I'm concerned that this nation is actually headed towards there. I mean, obviously, I don't think PAS is a viable party.
No.
But the thing is, more and more you're seeing, even in the United States, a lot of the younger generations, basically post-millennials, they are more into, they're actually pretty conservative. And I mean, in a way, kind of like religious to a certain degree. So I was just wondering if it's also similar if we were to do a poll here in Malaysia as well.
Yeah, actually, one of the podcasts that I've been listening recently, right? I think I was just sharing with some of you, of course, trigonometry, Konstantin Kissing, which is a very interesting. He's a libertarian, but a lot of conservative issue. But he interviewed a journalist called Richard Miniter, right? And so you see this kind of wanting to impose your religious view is not exclusive to Islam, You see, like the Catholics tend to do that also. So when America was found, there was one category of people, they're called the Puritan. So Puritan are basically people in New England. And they're very, very similar, They basically, I think in a Christian circle, they use the term legislative morality.
Yep.
So Puritan are very strict, right? It's like, okay. So like, right, you're using long pants, it's fine. If too short, cannot, So they're very, very strict. And so these are the people, mostly Protestant, during the Civil War in England, and it came, and they wanted to impose that. And I find it very interesting that all the Ivy League universities were founded by Puritan, Harvard, Princeton. And then when they kind of now, a lot of them are not believers anymore, and they have the woke movement, did you realize that they are also very militant about imposing woke value?
Yeah.
It's like they want to legislate woke. So it's almost like the same thing, except your God has changed. So, I mean, I will view the Islamists, you don't, from time to time, DAP is being accused as want to form Christian nation and things like that, but there's no such thing, right? I mean, it's like Malay is the largest majority by far. Yeah, you have more Christians in Sabah and Sarawak, but nobody has any intention, no other religion, not the Buddhist, not the Hindu and things like that. But the third model, which Bridget Welsh kind of mentioned, Islamist Malaysia, is a reality. And it kind of linked with the Iranian revolution, right? Because remember when in 1979, when the Shah was disposed, the Ayatollah took over. Then there was a lot of concern here. Mahathir was very concerned that PAS would have ascendancy in Malaysia, and that's why he recruited the president of ABIN, Anwar Ibrahim. I mean, this is history. Maybe some of our viewers and listeners might not have remembered the link, but it is really, there's an Islamist Malaysia, and over the years, you look at Barisan Nasional, they will always try to use the religion, to pivot this, and that's the era you have a lot of Islamization and things like that, right? So, you look at the chart by Bridget Welsh, they say, the rights, where is the source? It comes from religious leaders, right? So, what was this recently the Apex case? I suddenly can remember the
sisters in Islam.
Yeah. I mean, what was the thing that you can, like a decree like that? Islamic decree is called what?
Suddenly forgot the term.
Fatwa, right?
Yep.
So in 2014, they kind of issue a fatwa against sister in Islam. So appeal went all the way. So the federal court, which is the highest court, by a decision of 3-1, say, look, you can't impose fatwa on organization, because the fatwa also include like, all the social media, everything. You have to ban them. It's like, what? You're telling the government how to behave. You are a religious organization. So it is a good case, because we have been wanting to have more cases where the courts will become clearer, right, in terms of if there's a conflict between religious law and civil law, what happens? I mean, most legal mind in Malaysia who study the constitution law say, look, the religious law, it should be subservient to the civil law. Except if you are Muslim, then your personal life may be affected, which this case sort of affirm. The fatwa can affect your personal life, but not at an organization level. So, but anyway, you've been reading about that case. I didn't know that the case, it's just all of a sudden it came out.
Yeah.
And Tengku Maimun was writing the judgment. I mean, do you think it's a coincidence that her tenure is like not being extended because there are some powers to be behind? Because she did a few kind of, I mean, she was the lead judgment that kind of sent Najib to prison. A few cases that shows that she's not going to flow with the, I don't know, deep state or whatever.
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, because she has been known, I guess the way to look at her is like she is.
I think she's like a jurist, and she dares to make a legal, because it's like she's not afraid to make tough decision.
Yep.
I felt that with a few. I mean, even there's also a few cases on religious conversion and things like that, and so I mean, it would be interesting to kind of analyze all the cases she have done. Maybe we could do that in one episode.
Yes,
but we need to find someone really, really interested in law. I mean, it's like, I ask us to do case law, I think we'll kind of be bored to death, right? So it's very interesting. And then, of course, we have two other model.
Borneo, Malaysia.
Borneo, Malaysia, which is kind of gaining ascendancy in recent time, right? So what do you think of that? I mean, since both of us are from Sarawak, from Borneo.
Honestly, I mean, I'm about Borneo empowerment. But, I mean, even to a large degree, like regional, I mean, kind of like UAE sort of model. I do feel like that's more of...
Yeah, UAE, basically, the city have quite strong autonomy, city states. You kind of have Dubai and Abu Dhabi kind of have quite a very different kind of city. Abu Dhabi is older, more traditional.
But the interesting thing about the formation of UAE is really because they are
scared of Iran.
Exactly. I mean, I think a lot of people are probably unaware of it.
In fact, I wasn't aware until very recently. So it's like they formed that because they wanted a buffer.
Yeah.
And of course, it's really the Islamic civil war, in terms of the two sect,
Exactly. I mean, even with the war of attrition, air attrition in between Israel and Iran now, I think you can see that the neighboring countries are really, really just like having their air defense at all-time high alert. And basically, they also don't want like unwanted sort of casualty because of Iran just like firing missiles all over and things like that. And so I think it's the sort of thing that people don't think about here, and we kind of like just thought, hey, everything is like it's unfair because Israel strike first, and hence Iran deserves an opportunity to counter attack. But the thing is, like, there is a lot of Iranian empowerment, enrichment in Iran itself.
And that's the same rationale people use, right, to justify Hamas. And so, but of course, I mean, to be truly objective, people have to kind of examine the history properly and things like that. But of course, that regions, in fact, you have the GCC country, right? They call it the Gulf Council, right? Which even Qatar is a member, and many people observe that, like Trump is trying to, give GCC kind of more of a stronger platform. But in order to do that, you have to kind of contain the number one terrorist sponsor state, right? Because I mean, it's just a reality that Iran has been funding Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi, even previously Syria under Assad. So, but anyway, I mean, people. I mean, the only thing I would say is, look, everyone, you just have to go and do a proper research. Don't let mainstream media tell you what it is. Do your own due diligence, and I think you will come to a reasonable, fair conclusion. And because, you can read various sources just to compare, right? But I want to ask you something. I mean, we come back to Bridget Welsh kind of divisions matrix, right? Because when she come to the column Borneo, Malaysia, so I think we're going to put a link to that in this recording, so that, because I really think it's a very, very helpful chart. So in Borneo, Malaysia, she kind of referred to the source, where does the right come from? She said MA 63, which, and then of course the multicultural Malaysia, I said the source is the 1957 Constitution. Now, do you agree that when Malaysia is formed with 4 nations, you have Malaysia Agreement 1963, shouldn't that agreement become the new constitution of Malaysia, supersede the 1957?
I mean, I would think rightfully so.
Yeah, I think when we look at, so Malaysia, the commission is Cobalt, right? So, of course, Cobalt was very, very rushed compared to Reed, right? But even then, I remember that, it's like, a lot of things that say, look, we have an agreement, it should be honored. Of course, the surprise, the Constitution was never amended. How can you have, it's like you have a company, right? So can you imagine you have your existing Constitution, let's say I have a company, and then suddenly you decided to invest like 60%. Because you imagine Malaya, and then you plus Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore, at best, Malaya is 50%, but I think it's arguable that Malaya by itself is more junior than Sabah, Sarawak and Singapore. Of course, some people might not agree, but let's just say like we come in and you have a you have a agreement. What are the terms? Then those terms should come in and replace your existing constitution.
I mean, even with the civil contracts, you also have like the latest correspondences.
Yeah,
that
it's like
superseding
it supersede. Yeah, I mean, even from contractual point of view, we're both in the business of contract. It is very, so I find it very interesting that in fact, Borneo, Malaysia here, it's then talk about redistribution of power, Borneo empowerment, and I think we don't disagree with all these things, because that's what is supposed to happen. There should be some kind of decentralization and things like that.
Agree. I mean, because when I think about the word empowerment, it's not necessarily a bad thing altogether. It's not like you're power hungry. It's just rather the overall formation of, I mean, basically Sarawak itself. I mean, with previous ruling under the Rajas, the Brooke family, and basically self-governance has always been like the foundation
Yeah.
of Sarawak, and that is like, I mean, the fact that Sarawak agrees to join Malaysia is really, really on the understanding that there is an opportunity for self-governance.
Yeah, and of course, one of the cornerstone for, especially for Sarawak, because they are Christian majority country even before World War II and after World War II and after joining Malaysia. Even now, I think Christianity is still the number one religion. So the freedom religion was very, very important. But I guess in recent time, a lot of the people there, we talk about just from our observations and interaction, people are not very happy with this kind of, the kind of thing that Zaid Ibrahim said,
Exactly.
clerical leadership. It's like, yeah, right. And then, of course, we have the final model, which I don't know if she's serious or not, but it kind of Malaysia Mine, right? MINE. So it's like, I support everything. But I guess it is kind of true also, because you have the political elite, they hold the power, they have the right, and then your whole nation structure is to protect them. They, of course, we had the YNDB case and the downfall of Najib. Those are even a lot of example of Taib Mahmud, his legacy in Sarawak. I mean, of course, he didn't go to prison and things like that, but his legacy surely is not great, even among Sarawakian, right?
Yep.
Every time you mention his name, everyone is just kind of like laughing at him, because it's like, yeah, you have Malaysia Mine or Sarawak Mine. So these 5 model, and so some of the things, right? I mean, okay. Now, when you look at all those models, do you feel like they are all at equal strength, or some are having more momentum? I mean, if you look at it just based on your observation, which one in your view is selling better or has the potential to do well?
Well, I guess although we did say MA63 should supersede 1957, I do think it's because the whole idea about Malaysia is that it is a rainbow nation. So I suppose the one multicultural Malaysia is still more, it's still something that can gain more consensus among Malaysians.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and now we're getting into the nitty-gritty detail, right? Because you see, like the Borneo Malaysia model, Borneo empowerment, I mean, on surface it sounds great and things like that, but when you look at what the pro-independents are saying, is really, we just want to care about how Sarawak is doing well, and we don't care about the rest of the country. You can all go to die. So that's the kind of tone which, personally, I said many times already, I respect and I even believe that the possibility of Sarawak becoming an independent nation one day. Of course, what do you mean by independent? Is it recognized by United Nations, or you can be very, very independent like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and you are still part of the country, So or you look at a state like Texas, like that, it's like pretty independent, Even California is pretty independent, unless you start to do crazy things, then the government will have to come down and try to control, right? So if you talk about that, then yeah, but I just get that kind of feeling that I'm not saying, there's a group from the independence leaning side that has this kind of mindset that, look, everything is not related to us. I don't know. I just feel like it's not going to be attractive enough for people to support you.
Do you reckon they're kind of like the isolationists?
Yeah, in a way. So they want to go back and say MSC3. So this category of people, from a legal argument point of view, they want to say MSC3 never took place. But still, everyone kind of behave. It's like you can say, these two persons are not legally married. Yeah, maybe true, but you continue to live like husband and wife for 60 years. Then you can't say nothing happened at all, right? So, yeah. So that's why I when you mentioned that, I really felt like it could be a combination of that and the multicultural Malaysia. because a lot of other states are also saying we want more autonomy, right? But of course, then they will say, oh, but Sabah and Sarawak were different. We came in as nations. You're all part of Malaya, too bad. So that kind of argument, okay, still possible to argue because it is a reality for different nations. But the fact is, everyone wants smaller government. We want less intervention. We don't want LHDN and all this. It's like kind of breathing fire down the people. We don't want to hear Mahakaya all the time as if every middle class is Mahakaya. Those kind of thing, which is small government. Because I think you rather have, personally, I'd rather have small government within Malaysia than if Sarawak become an independent nation but remains a big government.
That I agree.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. But we have seen at least 10 years already, the pro-independence group. But of course, political wing can change, but so far they have not been able to demonstrate they are a viable alternative to GPS. I truly hoped they will make some dent and become a political force. But I just felt like if the message is really, the rest of the country has nothing to do with us, I don't know. You still have a lot of Borneo people who doesn't feel like that. Like people like you and me, we don't necessarily feel like that, right?
Maybe because of the
maybe because we stay here.
distance.
Yeah, maybe because we stay here. Sure. Possible. But anyway, how do we? So maybe we kind of move to the next point. I think initially we wanted to explore some model in America and things like maybe that can be the next episode. But just talking about this, this whole both of us are Borneo people, stay in West Malaysia. Then we talk to people there, even our friends and family. There's always this kind of discussion, right? And so we know there are differences. So how do we resolve the differences?
I think first of all, people mustn't view it as a healthy discussion is actually not a compromise. Because in many sense, a lot of people will be thinking, I guess because we are moving more towards like moralistic sort of society, and people tend to think that if I don't support this, then hence I must be the exact opposite. And I don't think that's like as it is. There is still
There's
color
a general
that is called
political
grey.
trend, I think,
Exactly.
worldwide.
Yeah, so I don't think, so that's why I kind of like Trump's approach now. It's like, let's just mull over it for like 2 weeks and then we'll see what we're going to do. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to be like all in and things like that. So, but the thing is like, I guess there should be that sort of healthy discussion and maybe even do a polling and see what people actually like, because I was kind of like just listening to Human Daily Events by Jack Passelbeck, and he was inviting this one person from Post Millennial, I think the editor. So what she brought out was quite interesting, because it's like, yes, there's a lot of global news that is happening, but at the end of the day, people are still very much concerned about what's affecting their lives. And with this, as in like, the multicultural Malaysia or Borneo Malaysia, I think at the end of the day, it has to be something that is, I guess it's like what matters most to your heart, and what's the benefit that people, I think surely we can strike a win-win situation rather than like there's only just one winner out of this whole thing. So I don't think that's the thing. But the thing is, with where the nation is going now with the SST and whatnot, actually a lot of middle class people and even actually the supposedly protected B40 is also very much affected by this whole thing, and people don't find it palatable at all. And you say that you are like championing the cause and they're trying to like rip off the rich and just give it to the poor. I think the nation is maturing, and in that sense, even the differences in terms of how we are processing how this nation should navigate in days ahead, it is also kind of like a maturing process. So just like how you get to know another person, you kind of have to like communicate, keep I wouldn't say change your expectation, but actually just keep communicating through and try to work out certain things and basically see where both of you can stand together. And there are certain things that can be left agreed to disagree.
Yeah, it's really interesting you said that, because when I was listening to you, I just felt like we actually have more agreement and similarities than differences. I'm talking about in Malaysia. So yeah, let's not focus on the differences. It's just like in marriage and things like that. You're going to have disagreement, right? You can't really change the
Yeah.
person, but you're going to have to want to focus more on the agreement, and that's why I think the podcast I mentioned, Richard Miniter in trigonometry, he also mentioned about the fundamental difference between the Democrat, which is more of a collision. Collision, basically you get everyone like a big umbrella. We don't have to agree and things like that. But you just have to make sure everyone's interest is taken care of. So that's like a labor union kind of approach. But then you have the Republican, which is more consensus party. Now he answered like Kissing's question, because they were asking him about, because previously in the last episode we talked about Elon Musk, right, and things like that. So they were having this interview even before Elon kind of imploded, right? So, but they were asking the question to Richard about, what do you think about the tech bro? Because tech bro wants to have more migration, they want to have more cheap labor and things like that. So would they come into kind of like a confrontation with MAGA America first? So Richard was saying, look, the Republican Party, he started off by saying there won't be a problem, because he said Republican Party is more of a consensus party. So that means people will keep on discussing, agree, disagree, until you reach about 75%, 80%. So that's your consensus. Should we America? So basically, after 4-5 years, almost 10 years of Trump, the Republican Party consensus now is American first. They have ascendancy already. Then what happened to the other 20%? You either submit or you will leave the party.
Yep.
So kind of like, I think you look at marriage example, it will be like this, right? You kind of reach your 80%, 75%. Then the other 25% agree to disagree, or
you can still live a happy life.
Yeah, you can, or you kind of adopt, right? I mean we are like married people and things like that. There are times we can change our mind and agree with our spouse after a lot of discussion, and vice versa. So they can persuade you and you can persuade them. So that's a consensus model. And I felt like maybe that would be the way forwards, that even you have certain things. I think 70% is a healthy number, because you can't have 50-50, you can't have 60-40. That's like too, what's the right word here? That's too polarizing. But if you have 70, then in fact they say 80 is the best. 80-20, that's a leadership
Yeah, that's
law,
true.
right? But anyway, I mean, I constantly think about this, because we do have a lot of people who have different vision about what Malaysia should be. Zaid has his own clerical point of view. We think that it won't work. I mean, we both support the Borneo, what's the word again?
Malaysia.
Borneo, Malaysia, and
Borneo empowerment.
Well, Borneo empowerment, we agree with that, but maybe the detail of how it's done, like I personally don't agree that you should just say everyone not related to Borneo is none of our business. I think that's very short-sighted. But yeah, I mean, so what else? I think we kind of reached the point where we can kind of end our. I mean, we kind of, yeah. Actually, when I first looked at this chart, I kind of felt like maybe that's all we can cover in this episode.
We kind of work a lot.
Yeah, but I think the next episode, maybe we want to talk a little bit about the. In fact, again, going back to the Richard Miniter podcast, which we'll put a link here, very, very interesting, because it's at the formation of America, the society, the British people who came, actually is because they have a lot of dealing in England, in Scotland, and it's related to the British Civil War, and how they live their life as a societal bloc. They kind of brought it over to America, and that is still impacting today. So, but they find ways to have compromise and things like that. So maybe in the next episode we can look at that and maybe discuss some more, in terms of the 5 Malaysian model. Maybe we should get some of our friends. Maybe we should get David Tian or someone to come.
Yeah.
Because it would be very interesting. I really, every time as long as you're Malaysian, I think you have a right to say what you wish
Definitely.
and what kind of vision you want. And eventually, after a long discussion, if we get 70-80%, I think that's the country we're going to get. Anyway, I think we have covered a lot, and that's all the time we have for today. So until next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye bye.